Hello Mila, hello Jack. Hello everyone else who's watching. Welcome to Storytime with Grandad. Today's book is from Roobarb and Custard and it's When Rhubarb Was All at Sea. It was a cold and stormy night. The rain was rattling Rhubarb's window pane, as though it wanted to come inside. Rhubarb was trying to get to sleep with his paws covering his ears. It was Christmas Eve, and he knew that the sooner he went to sleep, the sooner it would be morning. His stocking was hanging at the foot of the bed, waiting to be filled, and there was a glass of rhubarb wine, along with the very first slice of Christmas cake on the table for Father Christmas. Rhubarb lay listening to the storm outside and huddled down under the covers. He felt as though the bed was rocking, and he wished he hadn't eaten the rest of the Christmas cake for his supper. It was sitting now somewhere between his throat and his stomach, feeling like a large piece of lead, or perhaps a cannonball. He would read his favourite story, he decided, the one about Admiral Horatio Nelson sailing off in his ship the Victory to fight the French fleet. Soon he was stuck into the story, but gradually, after all the excitement of Christmas Eve, the book slipped from his paws and Rhubarb drifted into a restless sort of sleep. Outside the wind was blowing a gale when HMS Fig Tree slipped her moorings and began her perilous journey out of harbour with Admiral Horatio Rhubarb on the bridge. "Wait for me," yelled Rhubarb as the ship passed slowly beneath it, knocking Crow right out of the crow's nest, where he had been quietly looking out for himself while everyone else was working. "Wait for me," shouted Admiral Rhubarb again. "Admiral coming aboard," piped Crow, getting into a bit of a flap as Rhubarb took a flying leap and landed on the poop deck. Captain Custody, his second in command, was just at that moment pooh-poohing the whole idea of the voyage. He had never been a sea cat at the best of times, and was perfectly happy to leave the adventures to anyone else who wanted them. Admiral Rhubarb, however, was a different kettle of dog. He had no time for moaners, and now that the ship was out of port, he opened a large bottle of fizzy lemonade and proceeded to shout his orders between swigs. "All paws on deck!" Gulp. "Rig the rigging!" Gurgle. "Top the topsail!" Glug. "Jab the jib!" Whoosh, pardon me, as the lemonade came fizzing back down his nose. "Keep moving, you lazy landlubbers!" What a very admirable admiral I am, to be sure, thought Rhubarb. He took a peep at himself in a porthole, smoothed the epaulettes on his jacket, cocked his cocked hat at a jaunty angle, and patted the patch into position over his right eye. It was a pity, of course, about the eye. It meant that he could only see half of the sea at a time. But then he reassured himself. One half of the sea looked very much like the other half, however many eyes you saw it with. There was a lot of stuff about, all sloppy and shifty and salty. They sailed on through the dark night, hour after weary hour, with Admiral Rhubarb navigating by the light of the Dog Star. "Left paw down a bit," he shouted. "Use your winkers when you're going to turn right, can't you? Slow now, sea works ahead. Port at major shipping lane. And remember the high sea code." He reversed rapidly round Dogger Bank. Then he realised that he'd turned left instead of right at the Dover traffic lights. "Where are we?" demanded Custody at intervals. "Are we nearly there?" But as nobody ever answered, he soon got tired of asking. Actually, Rhubarb had no idea. Crow had flown back to the crow's nest and settled himself down for the night, and the rest of the crew went below to play snap and drink the rest of Admiral Rhubarb's wine. However, all was well. As dawn broke with an ear-splitting crack, the French fleet sailed into sight. Custody looked at them, with his whiskers wiggling with fright. There were more ships than he could count on his paws, and he didn't much care for it. "Let's go home," he suggested. "We could come back tomorrow." Admiral Rhubarb gave him a withering look, which was really the effect of too much fizzy lemonade. Prepare to engage for battle, he barked happily, and ordered Captain Custody to run up the flag and make a signal. Custody ran up the flag and made a signal, which, fortunately, Admiral Rhubarb didn't see, because he had the telescope to his blind eye. England expects, growled Rhubarb in his best sea dog voice. England expects that every dog this day will do his duty. And under his breath he added, I'll have that bony part for dinner tonight. You see if I don't. There was a lull as HMS Figtree swung around broadside onto the French fleet. Captain Custody held his breath and almost forgot to let it go again. Dog the guns, came the order from Admiral Rhubarb, while up in the crow's nest, Crow became wild with excitement and yelled, Action stations! Action stations! Wait until you see the whites of their eyes, advised Rhubarb, and then fire! In no time at all, shot and shell were shooting in all directions. Presently the air was thick with tennis balls. Cries of shot and well smashed and volley, volley rang out. There was one awful moment when the enemy lobbed right over one of Rhubarb's bows. A flourishing one in which he bent double and had difficulty getting up again. What the deuce is he doing? Why doesn't that silly ass stop showing off? Grumbled Custody. But Admiral Rhubarb was enjoying himself. 30, love, he shouted, as yet another French ship disappeared beneath the waves. My goodness, what a racket! There certainly was a lot of noise. Captain Custody would have liked to have covered his ears with his paws, but his paws were busy covering his eyes, so he plugged them instead with ship's biscuits. Nobody had ever yet dared suggest that Custody was yellow. He was, as everyone knew, a very becoming shade of pink. He could hardly bear to watch any longer. He decided to slip away, hide behind the cabin boy, and perhaps sneak a quick smoke of the boatswain's pipe until it was all over. Which surely must be any minute now. Admiral Rhubarb was in fact just about to call game, set and match, when a tremendous volley caught him off balance. When he wasn't looking, it knocked him backwards onto the deck, where he lay panting and barkless. He lay there for a long time, listening to the noise all around him and wondering whether to wake up or not. The cannonball somewhere between his throat and his stomach felt very uncomfortable. In fact, he could hardly breathe. On the other paw, he didn't know what was going to happen next. He decided to go ahead, finish the dream, and wake up afterwards. So he went on lying where he was until Captain Custody fell over him. What's the paw? Whispered Admiral Rhubarb hoarsely, his strength fast ebbing away from him. It's a knockout, chuckled Custody. And it's okay, we won. Well, that makes a nice change, said the Admiral, even though those Frenchies have played their joker on me this time. Then he hesitated. The words were in all the history books, so he supposed he'd better say them and get it over with. Kiss me, Custody, he growled. Fortunately, Custody hadn't read the history books. Not likely, he protested. This isn't a football match, you know. And removing Rhubarb's jacket, his cocked hat and his eye patch, he decided to promote himself Admiral. If that isn't just like him, ranted Rhubarb, missing out on all the gory bits and grabbing the glory bits. But Custody wasn't listening. He was getting stuck into a large creamy rhubarbar, after which he gave orders for HMS Figtree to do an about-turn and head for home. What about me? Wailed Rhubarb. What shall I do? How about writing a column for the morning papers, called Custody, as he stomped away to splice the main brace. Rhubarb thought that was a rotten end to a dream, but then he remembered that when he woke up, it would be Christmas Day. He decided to wake up straight away and get started on it. So he did. The end. Goodbye, Mila. Goodbye, Jack. I'll see you soon. Goodbye, everyone. Bye.